WCW Clash of the Champions 34 took place on the 21st of January 1997 inside the Wisconsin Center in Milwaukee. Airing live on the mothership, the TBS Superstation, Clash 34 is kinda sandwiched between the previous night's Monday Nitro and Saturday's NWO sold out pay-per-view. So it's quite a busy week for WCW with an incredible amount of content for viewers. This was the second to last Clash show. WCW were doing good numbers with Nitro and pay-per-view, so the free marketing and promotion that Clash of the Champions previously provided wasn't really necessary. And on top of that, Eric Bischoff would have a bigger problem on the horizon, the introduction of WCW Thunder. The eventual debut of Thunder brought the demise of Clash of the Champions, but we'll get to all of that eventually on Reliving the War, so make sure you're subscribed. An estimated 6,800 fans attended Clash 34. The show drew a 3.5 TV rating, which was pretty good. So let's take a look at the whole event and see what happened. Our opening match is a Dean Malenko vs Ultimo Dragon Starrcade rematch, and if Starrcade is anything to go by, this should be great. Malenko and Dragon also had a match on Nitro the previous night, which maybe took some of the anticipation out of this contest, but I'm not complaining. I'd happily watch these guys wrestle a few times a week. Dragon's Cruiserweight title, the title he won at Starrcade from Malenko, is on the line. Like Starrcade, this is the longest match on the card also, which just reinforces the fact that when it came to delivering the goods inside the ring, the Cruiserweights of WCW could be trusted. We have the fantastic Brian Hildebrand or Mark Curtis calling the action in this opening match, and here we go, the first match of Clash of the Champions. A focused Dean Malenko applies a wristlock to start us off, but Dragon does the Owen Hart headstand counter. We then see the same hammerlock counter sequence we saw at Starrcade, and this isn't a complaint. It's incredible how easy these two make this look. Dragon applies a leg lock, and then...
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Yeah, we've got some commercials. Remember, this isn't a pay-per-view, but it is live, so we're going to miss some in-ring action here. Did you know that the NWO had their own hotline, just like Mean Gene Okerlund? I wonder what was said on those phone recordings. WCW give a shout out to their sponsors before we go back to in-ring action. Malenko tries to suplex Dragon, but Dragon makes it to the ropes. The crowd noise when Dean begins fighting back is incredible.
60,000 fans at the Tokyo Dome saw Jushin Liger win the Cruiserweight Title unification match.
Dean eventually hits that suplex, and again the crowd pops. Looks like we have a great audience here for the Clash, which is always good to see. Dean applies a chinlock before quickly moving to a head scissors. Dragon manages to escape, and we see a nice kick combo that puts Malenko to the mat. A hard kick to the back sends Dean to the outside. Dean takes his time outside the ring, and Curtis tries to keep Dragon at bay until Malenko gets back inside the ropes. But the moment Dean gets back in, Dragon launches an attack. Dean fights back, and Ultimo Dragon takes a delayed back suplex. Malenko gets Dragon all tied up, and all the pressure gets put on the ankle. Dragon makes it to the ropes, but it looks like some damage is being done as Dean begins a focused attack. A single leg Boston Crab gets applied as Sonny Ono looks on. Dragon kicks Dean, but this just causes more trouble for Dragon. And it takes a series of kicks for Dean to loosen the hold a little, and Dragon makes it to the ropes. The small details and nuances of this match, and the Starrcade match for that matter, is what makes Dragon vs Malenko so good. Malenko hits a knee breaker before applying more pressure to the knee and leg. Dragon tries to fight back, but Malenko throws his opponent out of the ring, as Dusty Rhodes says that this was maybe a mistake. Dean should have focused on the injured body part. Dean proves Dusty wrong by using the guardrail to further damage Ultimo Dragon. Malenko is firmly in the driver's seat here, and Dragon is in serious trouble. Dean goes for a figure four, and to block the hold, Dragon grabs Dean's left foot to stop his leg going over Dragon's knee. Again, a small detail, but it's a great counter attempt that you don't see done too often. Dragon can't hold on for too long though, and Dean ends up applying the figure four. Mark Curtis asks Dragon if he wants to give it up, but Dean ends up releasing the hold a little early. Dragon takes a corner clothesline, but when Dean goes for it one more time, Dragon comes back with a wheel kick. It's a little disappointing that Dragon didn't sell the knee, but anyway. Dean stops Dragon from performing an aerial attack and we see a superplex. Dean's follow-up pin attempt only scores a 2 count. Malenko then goes for a powerbomb, but Dragon counters with a pinning Hurricane Rana. And look at the torque here. It's almost like a snap Hurricane Rana, if such a thing exists. Fucking incredible. A springboard dropkick sends Dean to the outside. Malenko does well to avoid Dragon afterwards, but the action goes to the entrance ramp where Dean gets thrown into the guardrail. We then see the Asai moonsault. Dragon tries to end it with a suplex in the ring, followed by another moonsault, but Malenko kicks out. The match continues. The crowd gets distracted as a few fans begin fighting. The cameras are quick to move away from the scuffle as Dragon hits a Frankensteiner from the top rope. Ultimo Dragon tries to end it with his Tiger Suplex, but Malenko counters with a Cloverleaf attempt. Dragon rolls up Dean, but it only gets a 2 count. And then the match comes to an end when Dean lands a double underhook powerbomb that makes Sonny Ono jump up on the apron. Dean takes out Ono, we see the Texas Cloverleaf in the middle of the ring, and Dragon gives up. We then see Mark Curtis doing his signature double guns. Dean Malenko becomes the Cruiserweight Champion for the 3rd time. An excellent match to open up Clash 34, and honestly, the best match on the card in my opinion. I do like the Starrcade matchup a little more, but this one is still brilliant. Give it a watch. More commercials up next. We've got Slim Jim, Chef Boyardee, and the Mighty Ducks 3 on VHS. Scotty Riggs and Mike Enos don't get entrances, and our next match is already underway, and fair warning guys, we're going to see a lot of short matches during this show. Mike Enos attacks Riggs from behind, but Scotty is quick to turn things around with a back elbow. The commentary team hype up the Riggs vs Bagwell match happening at Sold Out as Enos gets thrown out of the ring, and listen to Dusty here talking about Buff Bagwell.
Buffy, little Buffy Bagwell.
Trade
Buffy.
The
Yeah,
Buff
Buffy.
made up.
Buffy, little Buffy Bagwell, Buffy, big Buff. Anyway, Enos stays in control with a clothesline from the apron. When the two men get back inside the ring, Enos pulls off an overhead belly-to-belly suplex. Riggs comes back with a flying forearm, and that's it over. Riggs wins via pinfall. 2 minutes and 26 seconds. Riggs talks to the camera afterwards and he says he's coming after Buff Bagwell at Sold Out. And what can I say? It felt like a waste of time. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash promote the NWO Sold Out t-shirt before we move on to our next segment. It's an interview spot with the Four Horsemen minus Ric Flair. Mean Gene says there was a meeting in the hotel this morning with the Horsemen and the group is now apparently back on the same page. Benoit says the Horsemen will dominate in 1997 before sending a message to Kevin Sullivan. Benoit says he's beating the Taskmaster physically, mentally and spiritually. Sullivan's game of chess is completely irrelevant to the Wolverine. When Chris doesn't get what he wants, he cripples. But Benoit says he's already taken everything Sullivan has. The only thing left is to take away Sullivan's career. Anderson says that Benoit reached in and he ripped out Sullivan's heart. All he has to do now is finish the job. The crowd haven't stopped chanting "We want Flair," by the way. Mongo gets a harsh reaction from the Wisconsin audience. Steve says winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Sullivan is going to get destroyed by Chris a little later on, and tonight is the Horsemen's time. Aaron, Benoit and Woman leave as Deborah talks shit about Woman, and I don't get this at all. Do people just stop listening to promos as soon as they walk back through the curtain? So much for the Horsemen being on the same page. Anyway, this was okay, but the crowd wanted to see Nature Boy Ric Flair. Trios action next, and we've got a few changes. Juventud Guerrero no-showed the event, so Chris Jericho takes his place. And Psychosis was recently injured in a match against La Parca in Mexico, so La Parca stands in for Psychosis. So it's Conan, La Parca and JL versus Chavo Guerrero, Super Calo and Chris Jericho. We start off with Chavo Guerrero and JL, and as expected in these kind of matches, there's no early advantage gained by either competitor. The two show off some high-flying moves and they quickly tag out. We've now got Conan and Super Calo, and Conan starts off with some quick strikes. Conan then keeps a hold of Calo's arm while performing multiple arm drags, and Calo pulls off an impressive springboard arm drag himself. Calo continues to impress with a step-up inverted Hurricane Rana, and now we have the replacements in the ring. Chris Jericho and La Parka. It's kinda crazy calling these guys replacements. A power slam from La Parka gets the crowd excited, but Jericho kicks out at 2. Chris then floors La Parka with a clothesline, but a spinneroonie brings La Parka back to his feet, and Jericho gets nailed with a hook kick. After hitting a missile dropkick, Jericho tags in Chavo. Chavo wants to clean house, and check this out. He hits La Parka with a dropkick, and La Parka's like, fuck that, I'll pretend that just didn't happen. La Parka stays in the ring, and Chavo takes some punishment from Conan also. We see a double leapfrog followed by a double clothesline and a double dropkick. And then Chavo finds himself in position for a doomsday device, but La Parka just watch.
Bring Conan over. What is he going to try here? Moonsault? Oh my goodness. And
Absolute madman. Fantastic. We end up getting Jericho and JL next, and I thought Jericho was getting booed earlier in the match, but I wasn't 100% sure. His time in the ring here with Jerry Lynn confirms it though. The crowd definitely doesn't like Jericho. A spinning wheel kick floors JL, the crowd boos. Conan runs in and Jericho gets hit, the crowd cheers. We then see the best part of the match when each competitor takes a turn at launching himself from the ring to the outside. Loads of high risk here and loads of fun, the crowd loves it. Jericho managed to get the crowd back on his side after winning the match for his team. Good stuff here, but just a little short. WCW quickly realised that multi-man cruiserweight matches were the way to go, and we'll be seeing more of these bouts on Monday Nitro, and that's a good thing. Give this one a watch, I guarantee you'll be itching for more afterwards. Is it weird that I want to see entrances, but Clash of the Champions 34 keeps skipping them? Harlem Heat, Joe Gomez and the Renegade are already in the ring, and yeah, guess these guys are having a tag match. No story and no reason, just like the previous 2 matches. Booker T and Gomez have a scuffle in the corner. Stevie Ray comes in to lend a hand, and we end up with Stevie Ray and Gomez starting us off. Gomez gets destroyed, and Booker T delivers more punishment after getting tagged in immediately afterwards. Gomez tries to catch Booker with a roll-up, but that just pisses Booker off even more. Booker tags out and Gomez ends up taking a double suplex. On the outside of the ring, even Sister Sherry beats up Gomez a little as Harlem Heat continue to dominate the match. Back in the ring, we get a leg drop from Stevie Ray, a scissors kick from Booker T, and Gomez is finally able to make a tag after Booker misses a leg drop from the middle rope. The Renegade gets zero crowd reaction as Booker and Stevie begin feeding, and the crowd pops when Stevie Ray decides enough's enough and Renegade gets planted. We then see the Heat Seeker from Harlem Heat, and that's it, the match is over. It's an embarrassing loss for Joe Gomez and the Renegade. Harlem Heat say they want the tag team titles, so the outsiders better watch out. I mean, there were some good moves pulled off by Booker and Stevie Ray as usual, but there's way better Harlem Heat matches out there. Give this one a miss. WCW are making the most of Masahiro Chono's stay in the United States. He wrestled on Nitro, he's going to face Chris Jericho at Sold Out, and here he has a match against Alex Wright. This is one harsh crowd tonight, and I love it. They go crazy when Chono lays in a beating to poor Alex, and they pop when Nick Patrick puts his NWO cap on backwards. If Sold Out was in front of this audience, it would have been so much better. Alex makes his heroic comeback and Chono takes some punishment in the corner. Wright even beats the shit out of Chono's NWO shirt, and the shirt absolutely refuses to do the job. Wright gets whipped into the corner and he performs a backflip. Chono then grabs Alex's foot and we see an enziguri. A leaping head scissors brings Chono down and Alex thinks he has this one in the bag, but Masahiro Chono comes back with a headlock and a shoulder block. I said this in the Sold Out video, but it does feel like Chono was on holiday during this time period. It just doesn't feel like he's interested in busting his ass. Alex replies with a jumping sidekick and he gets a ton of hang time. And from here, nasty Nick Patrick begins playing up and he consistently gives Alex slow counts. The match ends with Alex getting thrown out of the ring. He and Chono then fight on the apron, but Alex gets the upper hand. We see a diving sunset flip, but again, Nick Patrick gives a slow count. Alex kicks Patrick in the knee for some reason. Patrick threatens to disqualify Alex, but he doesn't need to. Wright misses a diving crossbody, Chono nails the Yakuza kick, and Masahiro Chono wins via pinfall. This isn't bad, but you're not seeing Masahiro Chono at his best at all. Like the Jericho match, it's Sold Out. It feels like Chono is just going through the motions and it's a real shame too. Superfans of Chono should still check this one out, but everyone else wouldn't miss much by skipping this match. The Public Enemy are here to sell some merch. Not their merch though, they're promoting Lex Luger's new shirt. Luger has Ice Train up in the rack while Johnny Grunge gives us a sales pitch.
Lex Luger, official t-shirt! It's strong, it's durable, it's 100% cotton! As you can see, it even holds up under the rack!
Eddie Guerrero and Scott Norton don't get entrances either, and this is another match that's been plucked out of thin air. Guerrero battles Six later in the week in a ladder match, Eddie's US title is on the line, and Scott Norton faces Diamond Dallas Page, the man who recently turned down the New World Order. Guerrero gives Patrick a playful slap on the ass and Patrick threatens to disqualify Eddie. Patrick decides he liked it though, so our match gets underway. Eddie goes for a side headlock but Norton throws Eddie over his shoulder. Guerrero lands on his feet and Scott tells Eddie to rethink his strategy. A waistlock from Eddie also fails to bring Norton down, and once again, Scott tells Eddie he's gonna have to try something else. The destruction begins with Norton throwing Eddie into the corner, and I mean he throws him into the corner. Scott then whips Guerrero to the opposite turnbuckles, and a press slam rocks Eddie Guerrero. Guerrero then begins using his speed to avoid Norton's attacks, and a low dropkick does a little damage. Eddie realizes that going after Norton's legs will be the best option as he goes on the attack. We even see Eddie's apron senton targeting Norton's leg, and Eddie tries to soften Norton up with a grounded leg lock. Feeling more confident, Eddie tries a few knife-edge chops, but that was a big mistake. Big Scott Norton absorbs the strikes and Eddie gets sent to the mat. Eddie's lift-up dropkick does absolutely no damage either, and it's almost like Guerrero has encountered the final boss here. Norton can't be hurt, it seems, from the waist up. Check out Norton's suplex here.
What? Look at this one arm and just drop.
You need to hear this powerbomb also.
So easy. Oh my goodness.
Guerrero is done for. Dusty Rhodes says on commentary that this match is over, but Guerrero surprises everyone by jumping up and attacking Norton at the turnbuckles. Eddie manages to pull off a Frankensteiner and he signals for the frog splash. Eddie goes up but he has to roll out of the move. Norton gets out of the way and Guerrero gets floored. But then we see Diamond Dallas Page walking towards the ring from the crowd. Norton hits a jumping shoulder tackle and this also takes Nick Patrick out of the match, giving DDP the perfect opportunity to hit a diamond cutter that pops the audience. Guerrero then throws Nick Patrick back into the ring, we see the frog splash, and Nick Patrick has no choice but to count Norton's shoulders to the mat. This was a fun matchup. People may complain about the US champion looking weak going into Sold Out, but I enjoyed seeing Norton being so indestructible, and the diamond cutter went over really well with the crowd. It isn't a great matchup, but it's fun and pretty entertaining. Very short though, but you could say that about every match on this show. The Giant cuts a pre-taped promo and I'm getting Max Headroom vibes from this or something. It must be the backdrop.
The security held me back. It took a mountain of them back. It sold out nothing.
The Giant says Hulk Hogan must be counting how many lives he has left. The Hulkster has had so many close calls that the number must be dwindling pretty fast. The Giant says Hulk Hogan once called him his friend, but the whole time, the Giant was actually the guy who Hogan feared the most, and that's why the big man was added to the New World Order. Hulk Hogan is just like a match. A match provides purpose briefly. It may even provide a little inspiration, but eventually a match gets blown out and it's sold out later in the week. It's Hulk Hogan who gets blown out. It's Hulk Hogan who gets blown. I've never been inspired by a striking match either, by the way. Anyway, Giant's delivery here was absolutely fine, nothing to complain about. Hot Pockets gets a shout out here because wrestling fans love Hot Pockets. Macho Man tells us to snap into a Slim Jim. And here we go, it's time for the Chris Benoit vs Kevin Sullivan Falls Count Anywhere match. Sullivan wants to take the fight to the restroom straight away because Kevin just loves to fight in the shitter for some reason, and Chris Benoit obliges. The two men share punches on the outside before Chris throws Sullivan over the guardrail, and the two competitors make their way to the arena concourse, just like Nitro the previous night. We get to the top of the stairs and Bobby Eaton is providing additional security tonight. What a guy. Bobby tells the fans to back the fuck up as Sullivan and Benoit go to the restrooms. And here we go. Sullivan rams Chris's head into a paper towel dispenser and Chris is falling all over the place. Sullivan then tries to give Benoit a classic swirly down the toilet, but Chris thankfully fights out. Chris then grabs a trash can, he aims for Sullivan, but he instead completely wipes out Randy Anderson and Jimmy Hart. The towel dispenser gets taken off the wall after Sullivan gets his head rammed right into it. It gets so crazy that Randy Anderson manages to get his foot stuck in a urinal. Sullivan eventually manages to hit Chris with a short arm clothesline, and a cover follows. Poor Randy has to slap that piss-soaked floor only for Benoit to kick out at 2. Sullivan just stands there as Benoit lays in a ton of right hands. The garbage can comes into use again and the two men make their way back through the audience. Sullivan shoves Benoit and the crippler falls down the stairs. This looked pretty rough from what we can see. Bobby Eaton continues to control the fans as the two competitors make their way back down to the ringside area. Benoit ends up taking the knee strike while hung up in the Tree of Woe, and the devastating Sullivan double foot stomp gets delivered. This should have ended the match, but Chris kicks out. Randy Anderson gets between Sullivan and Jimmy Hart as Sullivan tries to grab the megaphone. And this gives Woman a chance to jump into the ring and nail Sullivan with a wooden chair. Chris pins the Taskmaster, and Chris Benoit wins the match. Again, like the Guerrero and Norton bout, it isn't a great match, but it's pretty fun to watch. Benoit breaks the wooden chair over Sullivan's head before we move on to our next bout, and the commentators speculate that this rivalry isn't over by a long shot. The Amazing French Canadians, no, not the Quebecers, the Amazing French Canadians take on the Steiner brothers next. And this is the first time Rick and Scott have wrestled on WCW programming together since September of 1996. Scott has been healing up after a back injury. The Outsiders appear on the big screens and they make fun of Rick and Scott. Nash and Hall say they'll see the Steiners this week at Sold Out, but if they feel like it, they might just show up during this match and take Rick and Scott out. We have a brawl with all four men in the ring to start things off, and Rick Steiner ends up hitting a Steiner line on Carl Ouellet. The French Canadians then make the Steiners chase them around the ring, leading to Rougeau and Ouellet getting an advantage by getting back into the ring first. The Amazing French Canadians brag to the audience after they take Rick and Scott out, but the Steiner brothers climb the ropes and we get to see some tandem aerial attacks. A commercial break then disrupts the action, and when we come back, Rick Steiner is getting double teamed by the French Canadians. Rick gets brought to the opposition's corner and the French Canadians go for the Quebec crash, but Rick moves out of the way. A double clothesline takes Carl and Jacques out, Scotty Steiner gets tagged in, and that's all she wrote. Scott destroys the French Canadians with clotheslines and back elbows. He lifts Rougeau overhead and he throws him into Carl. Jacques tries to even the odds by using his flag as a weapon, but it's no use. The Steiner brothers end the match with an assisted top rope DDT and the crowd goes nuts. This one felt a little predictable, and it's a shame too because the Amazing French Canadians have been doing some great work on Nitro recently, but the Steiners were too much at Clash of the Champions. A passable bout, but look elsewhere for better Steiner matches. And so we have our rather random main event, Scott Hall of the NWO taking on Lex Luger, a man who's had an incredible surge in popularity over the past few months. And really, in my opinion, the guy who should have faced Hogan for the belt, it's Sold Out. Hall, Nash and Six, collectively known as the Wolfpack, make their way down to the ring getting a great ovation, and Luger also gets a great reaction from the crowd. Hall mocks Lex when both men square off, he throws the toothpick and here we go. Lex overpowers Hall not once but twice. Hall tries to get it together but he ends up in a side headlock. Hall manages to pull off a side suplex, but Luger no-sells it. The total package stands up, he does the crab pose, and Hall reacts like anyone else would. He's kinda like, what the fuck's going on here? Lex lays in a few punches and he throws Scott to the opposite corner. Scott's able to get a boot up and we see a middle rope bulldog. It isn't enough to end the match. Kevin Nash watches on as Scott begins working over Luger's arm and shoulder, but Lex is going to be hard to beat tonight. A short arm clothesline floors the bad guy and Lex hits a few right hands afterwards. The crowd pops for a Scott Hall chokeslam that gets delivered after a hip toss block, but a follow-up elbow drop misses its target. Hall's able to throw Luger out of the ring though and buy himself a little time to recuperate. On the outside, Six and Kevin Nash keep Luger busy. Lex gets nailed with a clothesline and it looks like Hall could pick up a count-out victory. Lex, of course, makes it back into the ring. We've had to put up with a few fake Razor Ramon working punches on Reliving the War, so here, check out how it should be done.
Luger, the effects of that tremendous clothesline from Kevin
Luger
Nash.
gets pummeled in the corner, Lex takes a clothesline at the opposite side of the ring, and Kevin Nash distracts Mark Curtis as Six gets in a cheap shot. Hall tries to use the ropes for leverage during a pin attempt, but Lex still kicks out. And so the NWO's plan becomes clear. Distract the referee and get in as many cheap shots as possible. Curtis warns Nash and Six, but Big Sexy just laughs it off. Scott Hall hits his fallaway slam in the middle of the ring, but Lex again kicks out afterwards. Kevin Nash argues to Curtis that was a 3 count. Hall applies an abdominal stretch and Six is right there to lend a hand. The hold stays applied for quite some time until Luger reverses with a hip toss, but a follow-up elbow drop misses its target just like earlier in the match. Scott Hall lands a discus punch and Luger takes a chop in the corner. Hall tries whipping Luger into the opposite turnbuckles, but Lex slides out of the ring and Hall gets his little Chico smashed into the ring post. Lex comes back in with an apron to ring dropkick that didn't look too great, but bonus points for trying something different. And Hall takes an atomic drop followed by 3 inverted atomic drops. Dusty Rhodes says this is Luger getting Hall prepared for the torture rack. Hall gets floored with a clothesline and Lex is now all fired up. The fans want to see the rack, but Hall pokes Luger in the eye. Luger shrugs it off and we see the power slam. The total package then signals for the rack. This is going to be the end of the match, but Big Nash jumps on the apron. Lex takes care of Kevin and he also keeps Six at bay. The referee lets it slide as Luger stays in control while fighting off both of the outsiders. But once Six jumps from the top rope and he stomps on Luger, Curtis has no other choice but to award Lex Luger a win via disqualification. The NWO then begin beating Luger down, but the Steiners hit the ring to even the odds. All 6 men begin fighting and it ends with the NWO on the outside of the ring. Hall, Nash and Six try to get back inside, but they keep getting taken out by Rick, Scott and Luger. And this is how Clash of the Champions ended. Pretty average main event, not bad, but not great either. So, should you take the time to watch Clash of the Champions 34? If you have some time to spare, the Scott Norton, Chris Benoit, Ultimo Dragon, and the 6-man tag matches are all worth a quick watch, and they won't eat up a load of your time either, so yeah, if you've half an hour to spare, then check those matches out. Everything else you can skip and you wouldn't miss all that much. What stands out though about this show is just how good the audience were, and it's a real shame NWO Sold Out wasn't held in this same venue. The Cedar Rapids audience seemed absolutely flat in comparison to this lively bunch of wrestling fans at Clash of the Champions. They also cheered for the heels quite a few times, so this crowd definitely would have fit the NWO pay-per-view a whole lot more, but well, never mind. Speaking of Sold Out, if you're following the Reliving the War timeline, you can check out the Sold Out video right now. You should see a link on your screen now if I don't forget to put it there later. If you want early access to the next videos before they go on YouTube, and if you want to help me out and help out the channel, then head over to Patreon and see what tiers are available. Thanks for watching this one, guys. It was fun looking at a Clash show for a change, and we'll hopefully do this again for the final Clash of the Champions show in August of '97. See you next time, guys, and again, thanks for watching.